Hi everyone, today we're going to be learning about simple interest. So first we need to practice converting decimals to percents and then to percents back to decimals. So what we're going to do first is work with decimals to percents. If you have a decimal, you need to move the decimal 2 places to the right. So we can see that with our example here we have the 0.356 that we need to move 2 times to the right, creating the 35.6, and then you add the percent sign at the end. Next, we're going to do a percent to a decimal. You're going to move your decimal 2 spaces to the left, or if there's not a percent sign, then you would actually move the percent sign 2 spaces to the left. So let me show you both of those ways here for our example. Our first one is 35.6%. Since it has both the decimal and the percent sign, you actually use the decimal and you move it 2 spaces to the left, creating 0.356. Or if we see here that the next example only has the percent sign, you're going to take that percent sign and move it 2 spaces to the left, creating the decimal equaling 0.35. Now go ahead and practice on your guided notes. I want you to convert the decimal to a percent first for number 1 and 2. And then for number 3 and 4, you're going to convert the percentage to a decimal on your guided notes, and I will check these when I check your notes, that you got the correct answers. So we're going to go over our simple interest formula. The actual formula here is the I equals PRT, where each of these, the I stands for interest, the P stands for principal, R is the annual interest rate expressed as a decimal, and T stands for the time. And that's going to be expressed yearly. So for example, how much simple interest does $2,000 earn in 7 months at an interest rate of 5%? Giving me 700, and now I'm going to divide that by 12, giving me 58.3. And that is repeating as well. However, we're going to stop at the 100th every time in this class because we are talking about money. So now I'm going to write my complete sentence of what this actually means. And my complete sentence says, the account earns $58.33 of interest in 7 months. Now I want you guys to go ahead and do your work on your guided notes, and I will check for that you got the correct answer once I actually check your notes. Go ahead and pause the video, and when you are done actually trying this, go ahead and press play, and we will head on to the next example. Okay, so our next example, how much simple interest would $800 earn in 300 days in a non-leap year at an interest rate of 5.71%, and we're going to round to the nearest cent here. So again, we're going to go ahead and identify each of those variables. So we have I that we are looking for, so we have to do a question mark for that. Our P is our principal. We are starting off, we want to know how much $800 is going to earn. Our interest rate, move that the decimal 2 spaces to the left, so 0.0571. And then our time, we actually have 300 days. So if we think of yearly, that's the reason why I said non-leap year, because there are 365 days in a year. So that 300 needs to go over 365 days. Again, you can get this as a decimal but I think having a fraction is more accurate. But if you were to get a fraction, it would be decimal, it would be 0.8219, but you would just round to the 0.82. Whatever you guys think is easier, you might be a few decimals off when you go ahead and put this in the calculator. Now that we have gone and identified our equation here, our I equals, or our variables for our equation, we're going to go ahead and plug in all of these values into that formula. When we do that, we get 800. You don't need a dollar sign in there. But when you do $800 times 0.0571 times 300, that's how you put it in the calculator, just multiplying by the numerator. You would hit enter, and then you would divide by the 365, leaving us with a 37.545. But since that number is 5 or higher, I now have to round that number up to the next highest one, giving me a 5. So now I'm going to go ahead and write my complete sentence. And my complete sentence says the account earned $37.55 of simple interest in 300 days. For my next example, Carla deposits $1,200 in an account that pays 4.5% simple interest. She keeps the money in the account for 3 years without any deposits or withdrawals, meaning taking money in or taking it out. So how much is in the account after these 3 years have occurred? So what we're going to do is we're going to identify each of those positions or variables again. So we're trying to figure out how much is in the account after those 3 years. We're trying to figure out the interest still because it's going to be added to it. Our principal, she had $1,200 in here. Our interest rate pays at 4.5%, so we're going to move the decimal 2 spaces to the left. So that's a 0.045 now. And then our time is 3 years. But since there is only 1 year and a year, that would be 3 divided by 1, which actually just simplifies to 3. So again, now that we have all of our variables identified, we're now going to plug it into our formula of I equals PRT. So when we do that, we're going to go, the other thing that you see here, I ended up turning it into months, but if you just did 36 divided by 12, you would also see that that's 3. So you guys can put just a 3 right here instead of the 36 over 12, or if you like the 36 over 12, you keep it. You would do the same thing where you multiply the 36, all of these 3 numbers first, and then you would divide by that 12. Or if you kept it as a 3, then we're going to go ahead and multiply everything straight across, leaving us with 162. I think we were supposed to, and then so we have 162. Let's make it dollars. So let's go ahead and actually write our complete sentence now. Before we actually write our complete sentence, we want to make sure, because it's actually asking us a different question. Our complete sentence would be that our interest was $162. However, it's actually asking us how much is in the account after those 3 years. So remember, we actually started off with this $1,200 and we gained this much more interest. So what do you think we're going to have to do? We are going to have to add that $162 to the original amount we had in our account to see how much we actually have left. And when we add those, we have the $1,362. So now I can actually write my final sentence. The balance after 3 years is $1,362. And if we make our little money sign, because we're going to be using money, you're going to add those double zeros there. The next thing we're going to discuss is when solving for a variable other than the interest. So we're going to be trying to figure out the principal, the time, or even the interest rate. So your first step is going to be solving for the simple interest equation for your desired variable. So depending on which thing we're looking for in the question that the question's asking, we're going to have to manipulate this I equals PRT equation accordingly. Your second step is to plug in given values for each variable. So again, we'll be identifying each of those and having a question mark next to the one that we do not know yet. Your third step is, if solving for t, you're going to convert that to months, make sure we're in months that time. And if you're solving for r, we then have to convert that decimal to a percent sign. Because if you go back and see our actual examples here, they are all in percents, so we want to make sure that we are giving the actual problem a percentage. So for our first example, let's start off with our original equation, I equals PRT, and we want to say how much principal, so now that's our question mark. So when we're identifying this, our P actually has the question mark this time. So we need to get our P by itself. So this is all being multiplied, P is being multiplied by R and T. So when we go to solve for that, we're actually going to divide both sides by RT and RT, leaving us with our new formula of I divided by RT, and that equals P. If you guys like rewriting it so that it's nice and the one variable that we're solving for is on the left side, then you can go ahead and do so, but it does mean the same thing. So this is our new formula that we're going to be looking at when we solve for our principal. Our interest, now let's finish actually filling in our actual knowns. So our interest, it says that how much principal must be deposited to earn $1,000 of interest, simple interest, so that $1,000 is going to go here, in 2 years at a rate of 5%. So we have our time of the 2 years, so it can either be 2, if you were turning it into months, then we have 2 times 12, which is 24 months, and remember if you did it over 12, then we still get back to 2. And then our next thing is our interest rate, that 5%. We have no decimal there, so we're going to now move that percent sign 2 spaces to the left, creating it as 0.05. So now we're going to go and plug into our new formula that we have here. So when we plug that in for each of those variables, we are again finding the P, and then we want to figure out, we have our interest rate, so that's $1,000 divided by, the $1,000 is the amount of interest we gained. Our interest rate is 0.05, and then we're going to multiply that by the years. So 24 months over 12, if you were to simplify that, still get you 2. So now we have our formula. We can go ahead and simplify. I suggest multiplying down here first, and then once you do that, you can do your 1,000 divided by whatever you got in that denominator. So I got 1,000 divided by 0.1, and then now I can do my 1,000 divided by that 0.1, leaving me with 10,000. So my $10,000, I would actually need to have in my original account as the principal in order to gain $1,000 of interest with that interest rate, and for 2 years. So my complete sentence says there needs to be $10,000 in the account to make $1,000 of interest. Now to go over another example, we have Luis invests $5,000 in a simple interest account for 5 years. What interest rate now must the account pay so there is $6,000 at the end of 5 years? So again, let's go ahead and write down our I equals PRT formula. We are now figuring out our interest rate, which is the R. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both by P and T, everything that it's being multiplied by, leaving me with I divided by P times T equals R. Again, if you want to rewrite that formula so that the variable that you are solving for would be on the left, you can go ahead and do so. So this is my new formula I'm going to go ahead and implement. So now you are going to identify each of those values. So the interest that we actually have, so what interest rate must the account pay so that there is $6,000 at the end of 5 years? So be careful on this because we have a $5,000 and we have a $6,000. So basically we are gaining only $1,000 of interest within those 5 years. So I got that by doing 600. We want to know that there's $6,000 in the account minus the 5,000 that was already in there is going to get us our $1,000. Now I'm going to go to my principal. If we know that we already had $5,000 in the account, that's how much our principal is. Our R is the question mark. We don't know what we're finding. But then our T, we're looking at 5 years, so we can just use our 5 there. Now I'm going to go ahead and plug it into our new formula that we just figured out. And my R is already by itself, so now we're just going to do the interest rate, the amount of interest that needs to be gained, and then times the principal, the amount that was already in the account, and then times the amount of years it's going to be in. Again, go ahead and do the 5,000 times the actual 5 in the denominator because it will make it more accurate, leaving you with 25,000. And then we're going to go ahead and now we can go through and divide that 1,000 divided by 25,000. And we are left with 0.04. Remember, this was a decimal. Remember, we always turn our percentages to decimals. Well, to go back as a question, we're going to now go from a decimal to a percent. I need to now move this decimal 2 times to the right in order to get that percent. So now I have 4%. So I'm going to go ahead and write my complete sentence now, identifying what that answer actually means. And my complete sentence says the interest rate needs to be 4%, so the account has $6,000 in 5 years. Okay, so where it says whiteboards are on your thing, it should say you try. So I want you guys to go ahead and try this example. Antonio has a bank account that pays 4.1% interest. The balance is $910. So when will the account grow to $1,000? Your hint, be careful because you're going to be converting time to months again at the end of solving the problem. If it's a full amount of years, you won't have to do that. So good luck. I will check this when I check all your notes. Once you have completed that practice problem on the notes, I will check it when I check your notes, and then I want you guys to go ahead to your homework. We're going to be doing page 135 through 136, only numbers 3, 8, 10, and 17. All right, you guys, let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you soon.